All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming. We had a lot of really great response to recording the event, and many people who are going to look forward to the recording, I'm sure, and from quite a few different places. My name is Inga Brueggemann. I'm the Executive Director here at CODEX Foundation. If you have any questions, please let me know afterwards. But I'm really happy to welcome Sam Regal to give this talk. The CODEX Foundation is very interested in hearing more from librarians and how the work that many of the artists, printers, and publishers, the work that they make is being used in collections. So I'm happy to present Sam, and Sam is the Instruction and Exhibitions Librarian in Special Collections and Archives at UC Santa Cruz, where she oversees experiential learning programs, exhibitions, programming, public services, and bibliographic collection development. She holds an MLIS with a specialization in rare books and visual culture from UCLA, an MFA in poetry from Hunter College, which I didn't know, and which is really amazing, and a BA in English and American Literature from NYU. She is editor of the American Printing History Association, AFA's Printing History Journal, which is a really great organization. If anyone's interested in learning more, we can also chat your ear off about that. And her writing has most recently appeared in Parentheses, RBM, and East of Borneo. So please help me welcome Sam Regal, and welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much. All righty, let's get this going. Okay, great. So I have, wanted to get that top bar gone, but that's okay. We'll just deal with it. Thank you all for joining me today. I'm so excited to be here. I have a script that I'm going to try not to read off too much because this feels like a really warm, cozy, inviting group that is here with us today. And I'm sure you're very kind, you watching at home as well. So it is an honor to speak at CODEX, and I'm really excited to talk about my professional engagement with artist books in my role at UCSC Special Collections and Archives. It is my job and also my absolute joy to connect our student community with our artist books collection. I'm a particular proponent of using artist books in teaching contexts because beyond their immeasurable value as art objects, they offer unique and powerful ways into extraordinarily broad spectrums of research topics. And as I'm sure many of us can appreciate, they productively challenge held notions about knowledge and its transmission. So what it is to know and all of the ways that it can be passed from one person to another. So I'm going to begin with just a little bit of background info so you understand where I'm coming from. This is me. I am actually speaking to a class of students about artist books in this photo. I wear many hats at UCSC, but my personal scholarly interests span book history, material textuality, and the art of the book. As mentioned, a big part of my job is helping students connect to our collections, to activate them in meaningful ways, and I'm very interested in exploring different creative approaches to student engagement, which I'll dig into. So this is McHenry Library, just to set us in situ. It is home to Special Collections and Archives. It's really beautiful. You can see we have the cherry blossom tree blooming there, which happens for 1 week, but we got it. I also doctored this photo to add in Sammy the Slug, our famous mascot. UCSC Special Collections and Archives has a long history of engagement with the book arts and fine printing that extends from the time of the university's founding. So I see it as really integral to how the university kind of understands itself. These are all photos from our university archives up here. William Everson, pictured on the top left, ran the limekiln press in the library for over a decade. I really love the big smiles with the press on the top left there. And our first head of special collections, Rita Bottoms, had and has many close friends in the book arts world. And our collections include many gems that serve as evidence of those connections. So something else I really love about our collections is that you can trace kind of community that surrounds how they've been grown over time and all the relationships that exist. So I'm just going to give just the teeniest, tiniest bit of history so you understand how I got to where I am and where my interests lie and how they blossomed. So after a first career in advertising, I earned an MFA in poetry, as you've heard about, and I taught writing and literature for several years at Hunter College and the University of Georgia. But a fateful research trip to Yale's Beinecke inspired another career swerve, and I resolved to embrace my tendency toward object fetishization and pursue special collections librarianship. So my first role in the field was as project manager of CalRBS, California Rare Book School. Here I am in a Zoom room. We love them, we remember them from 2020. So I learned so much at CalRBS, and I also had the opportunity to help organize CalRBS's first international program in northern Italy, where we printed at Tipoteca in Cornuda and engaged with a great many gorgeous artist books across public institutions and private collections. And you can see us printing there. That's my friend Sean, and one of the kind of site visits we did. I actually had more to say about that. Boop. My time at CalRBS inspired an enduring interest in teaching and learning through making. As you can see here. I also had the privilege to study under Johanna Drucker while at UCLA, and she helped me learn a good variety of book art methodologies as well. So I learned some making. So after my time at CalRBS, I moved to the California Institute of the Arts, or CalArts, in LA, where I served as reference and instruction librarian, and eventually as the head of special collections. The very petite special collections there, but with a really cool artist book collection. At CalArts, I developed and taught the library's first credit-bearing course called Art of the Book, where I paired inquiry into the institution's artist books collection with different making activities. So you can see this is kind of a theme that's happening, which included bookbinding, papermaking, lino, etc. for students of all disciplines. The right side of this slide depicts two really incredible artworks by an MFA creative writer, which at the top, the sandwich, which says in mayonnaise, consume books, if you can't see, by Samuel O'Ringer, and a BFA graphic designer below. So something I really loved about this class in particular was that, as I mentioned, there were students from all different disciplines. So I had dancers making books, I had, poets, et cetera, and to see all of those different approaches to book arts, no one had a background in them, was really exciting and special. About a year and a half ago, just over that now, I joined UCSC Special Collections, where I facilitate hands-on object-based learning, making workshops, and student exhibition curation to activate collections in a number of modalities, which I will expand upon, but you can see a little bit of what's going on here. Hands-on book art engagement, people are making zines in that photo. I did not tell them to write I Heart Special Collections. They did it of their own volition. And then a grad student curating an exhibition. So also worth mentioning, although it was in my intro, I was a semi-recently appointed editor of printing history at the Journal of AFA, the American Printing History Association. This has been really wonderful. It's been a joy to learn from colleagues, and I am particularly excited. I had to do a little shout out about my first themed issue, which is hopefully coming out in September. It's all about community print production, and I think that's going to be really special, so stay tuned. So now that I provided kind of a general sense of my background, I'm going to, again, briefly outline a few research projects that provide a sense of my scholarly interests and how they extend to my instructional approach. So while at CalArts, I looked into artist book production at the Women's Graphic Center, which was housed at the Women's Building in downtown LA in the 70s, 80s. I focused on the artwork's unique formal hybridization. Some amazing, amazing books were made there. And also there is special capacity to transmit affective information, which connects the blossoming artist book movement to the major themes of the feminist art movement. So these were really, really special works that I found in a classroom setting really allowed folks to think deeply about what kind of information we expect and how we can accept different kinds of information, including feelings. So these artist books position emotion as a knowledge system. In an instructional context, these works and others like them can challenge students to reconsider what it is to know in general, offering a counterpoint to linear and, in my view, ultimately patriarchal knowledge systems. I also note the particular irony of CalArt's now full-throated embrace of these print materials after their explicit hostility to Judy Chicago and Miriam Shapiro, the founders of the institution's feminist art program. So, identifying institutional hypocrisy often counts among my learning goals, which is still true at my current institution. So this is the cover of Art Documentation, which is the journal of ARLIS, the Art Librarian Association. This is from '82, and it shows this effort to break down what an artist book is and how it differs from other things like it. So these are some examples that I write about from the East of Borneo piece. Each piece interrogates intimacy, emotion, invasion. So we have Susan King's beautiful work, Passport, which has just such gorgeous resonances. And then Suzanne Lacey's Rape Is, which requires the reader to break it open in order to access what lies within it. So I also recently wrote about Kara Walker's artist book Freedom of Fable for RBM, which is the Journal of Rare Books, Manuscripts, and Cultural Heritage. I trace the development of the silhouette art form in America and its complex racialized history, and I point to how Walker invoked this history in her artworks, which act as chasms upon which viewers project their own prejudices. So for those of you who might not be familiar with Kara Walker, generally her artworks kind of span large museum or gallery walls, but in one instance she articulated her work in a pop-up book. So the fact that it's a pop-up book introduces further resonances. The figures extend outward toward the reader, implicating them in the fabulation that is the notion of freedom. And they also subvert the pop-up book's familiarity as a children's learning tool. So we expect pop-up books to be one thing, but this is doing something quite different. The work's many layered complexities imbue it with a particular utility in instruction, because as with the works of the Women's Graphic Center that I just spoke about, Walker's artist book generates new means of approaching difficult and inexpressible topics. So I find artist books to be really incredible modes through which students can approach difficult, complicated research topics in general, in new ways, considering different kinds of logics and how they might fit into the kind of larger story. And finally, a few words about a community-engaged print project that I facilitated. This was last year. So I participated in the inaugural cohort of the Radical Librarianship Institute, which is a project of California Rare Book School. And lots of different kinds of folks participated in the RLI, Radical Librarianship Institute. It wasn't just people from higher ed. There were public librarians, folks from special libraries. It was a really great mix. So everyone was awarded a grant to partner with a community organization in the production of print materials that would be of service in some way to that community. So I partnered with Watsonville is in the Heart, or WITH, which is a research initiative focused on documenting and celebrating Filipino-American histories in the Pajaro Valley. WITH is really amazing. If you haven't looked into it, I highly recommend doing a Google. I worked with Malaya Simon Reynolds, who is a history grad student and also the director of the WITH Digital Archive. So a big part of WITH is they go to folks' homes and they help them digitize their own materials so that they endure, and no one takes those materials. They stay with the folks they stay with the families. And I also, on this project, work with Maya Mislang, who is an undergrad student and with researcher while she graduated. We made a 60-page zine celebrating community archival practices. Those practices already existed within the community, so this zine is celebrating and highlighting them. Maya wrote and designed the zine entirely independently. It was really amazing, and we distributed hundreds of copies at various community events. So that's what's happening here. Those are some of the contributors to the zine in that photo. And also Maya. Maya is the person with the cute little space buns, and her boyfriend Henry, the redhead, and her mom is there too. So this is some of the kind of inside spreads of the zine. It was really, really hard to choose examples for this slide because it is so rich and so moving. You know, I consider it an artist's book, but we decided to call it a zine. It includes photographs, reflections, poems, and other community histories contributed by members of the community. Maya did things like post on Facebook, asking for folks to, you know, reflect on different prompts. And she reached out to folks that she already had existing relationships with to, you know, ask permission and also solicit additional materials for the zine. So in the zine, she set community archival practices against her own budding professional interests in archiving, and the results are really beautiful. I'm very proud that she's starting an MLIS at UCLA in the fall. The project was conceived of as a means of intervening upon the colonial archive. So this is in UCSC Special Collections now. It's also in the libraries of every other participant in the RLI. So that is kind of its major purpose, but it was also conceived of as an experiential learning opportunity for Maya. It was her capstone, her senior project. And I think it was really effective to that end. And I'm very interested in continuing to explore community engaged and or community-led print projects as a research methodology. So now I'll transition to discussing my instructional approach and how it relates to artist books. In special collections, we are uniquely positioned to facilitate active learning in multiple modalities. Active learning is more effective and also serves as a mode of critical pedagogy. Per Paulo Freire, the more students work at storing the deposits entrusted to them, the less they develop the critical consciousness, which would result from their intervention in the world as transformers in that world. So active learning enables folks to experience, approach issues critically, and through that critical engagement, feel empowered to actually make changes in the world. I am a particular proponent of what I've termed a play pedagogy. I could get really jargony here, but I am not going to. We can discuss it later if you have interest. But as a high-level summary, research has proven that play, the state of play, facilitates learning by allowing learners to enter so-called liminal states between levels of understanding. So one piece of understanding, liminal state of play, higher kind of understanding is reached. Introducing play in the classroom allows students to experiment, to approach problems from new and different experimental angles, and to explore while mitigating fear of failure. That's a big part of it. Folks feel empowered to try things, to experiment without the fear that can often come with that in instructional settings with folks they might not be totally comfortable with. They don't know. As you can imagine, this encourages intellectual engagement and growth, and play can be articulated in a number of different ways. Play can also kind of be a vibe, a classroom feeling that you let people know that this is a safe space for them to touch, to smell, to use their senses, to experience things, to draw wild conclusions, to approach things from different angles. But there are also more concrete articulations. A note that play is a political act. A playful instructional approach can empower students to participate in their education, to contribute their voices and perspectives, and ultimately to challenge oppressive or violent structures within and beyond their academic milieus. So again, play invites folks to experiment, to call into question the status quo, and to reimagine the rules that govern their worlds. So play is powerful and political. So one means of encouraging play in instruction is through object-based learning. Per Gustavo Grandal Montero, object-based learning becomes a richer and more active experience for the mind and body via different senses, integrating cognitive and affective elements. So through touching, active learning, experiencing, using one's senses to engage with materials on many different levels, affective, etc. It, again, allows folks to think bigger about what research is, what knowledge is. Every class visit to special collections involves inherently exploratory, object-based learning, and artist books have particularly powerful resonances in this capacity. Object-based learning is immersive and transformative, and it challenges held notions of what it is to know, as I said. It also encourages material analysis, which can be a new mode of inquiry for many students, and particularly for undergrads. So, everyone harps on the fact that students are so digital, no one touches anything, which is true to an extent, but it's also true that folks don't necessarily know what it is to analyze something on a material level, to think about what it's made of and the stories that the materiality is telling, whether it's within the context of an artist book, where material choices contribute to the overarching, I'll say, narrative, although it's not necessarily that, or it can be historical works and et cetera, right? Material tells us a lot, and material textuality pairs that with the contents of the works. All right, here are some photos. So I wanted to be careful to not include anyone's faces without permission, so you might see a few of those happy faces throughout this presentation, which I find sort of threatening, but they're not meant to be. They're just not meant to preserve folks' privacy. So these are some snapshots of students engaging with some of our artist books, or just before said engagement occurs. So I ask you to kind of use your imagination to think about how folks might be touching and otherwise experiencing these wonderful artworks. There are several ways that I approach classes focused on engagement with artist books. I developed a short worksheet, as you can see here, and it's intended to guide looking and frame critical inquiry. So this isn't meant to be evaluative, no one's getting a grade. It's meant to help folks know where to start because they don't necessarily know where to start. So it's meant to be a tool. It asks things like, describe the book, what are the material qualities telling you? What is it? How would you characterize the text, the images? Is it a book? Which is always my favorite question. And what questions does it leave you with? I also have a longer version where I prompt students to do things like draw their interpretation of a book, an artist book's narrative, which can be really fun. I also sometimes use this as an assessment tool to review students' major takeaways from any given session. It can be really hard assessment in a special collections context, but I found that this can be really useful to that end. I also develop special collections bingo, which is really fun. Students always respond to gamification, and these sessions tend to be pretty lively. Bingo sessions are especially effective for first-year students or for groups who visit to develop kind of a more general understanding of what special collections is and its holdings. So a number of these trace back to artist books that we have on display when we do bingo. Some of them trace back to other materials, but this is a great way for folks to kind of get a more general understanding of our collections, but also, to plant the seed of interest in artist books for the future. I also encourage student engagement with artist books through a Friday Fascination series. Each Friday, I choose an artist book from the collection to display in the reading room all day. Students can drop in to look, touch, smell, etc. Use every sense but taste is the joke. Sometimes students laugh, usually they don't, without planning ahead or making an appointment. So we appreciate in special collections there can be many barriers to entry, right? Students don't know that the space is for them. They think that there are appointments, there are different ways of doing things. So the real purpose of this is to get folks in the space, touching things and understanding that our collections are for them, not just to sit on shelves for eternity. They're meant to be used. So we're always trying to foster a sense of belonging in the reading room space, and this is one of the ways that we try to approach that. Also, sometimes our student workers curate these materials, which I love and I would always do if I could, but sometimes the timing doesn't work out. We also have a robust exhibitions program. I work with students to develop exhibitions of their own conceptualization, curation, and design. And this tends to be a really excellent mode of active experiential learning. Students often tap into our artist book collection regardless of the subject matter of their exhibition, because they understand how amazing and kind of revealing artist books can be. So there are a variety of different exhibitions here that occurred in the last year or so. We have everything from pop-ups, there's an exhibition about Asian American and Pacific Islander student life. Everything here integrates artist books in some way. Our students just are obsessed with them. I also take every opportunity to facilitate critical making in the instructional space. Matt Ratto defines critical making as an illusion of two typically disconnected modes of engagement in the world. Critical thinking, often considered as abstract, explicit, linguistically based, internal, cognitively individualistic, and making, which is typically understood as material, tacit, embodied, external, and community-oriented. So this gorgeous combination of two different modes of inquiry, right? Approaching things critically and also entering this space of play, embodied learning. And also I love the nod to community-oriented learning, because it's so true. When we make, we are joining in community with other makers, particularly, with special collections, because when we make things, we're usually looking at collections materials as inspiration. So here are some of the fun student projects that we've done in the last year or so. The photo from the left is a zine making session that I host just about quarterly. We print out photos from our digital collections and encourage students to cut, collage, and remix them into zines to intervene upon university histories. So they may or may not feel that they are represented in the university archives as they are now. And this is meant as an opportunity for folks to, make an intervention and insert and assert their own knowledge and experience. We also make buttons, which students absolutely love. They think button makers are magic, so shout out button makers. Several student curated artworks are here on the right. A former student worker named Mia Perez created the gorgeous Rose book with me after encountering similarly structured materials in our collections. The rest are cool, fun zines that students have made. Critical making is also, and this is something that I think is really beautiful and perhaps somewhat unique to UCSC, it is embedded into course curriculum in a few instances. Porter Core is a 400 to 500 student class for first year, so it is huge, huge, huge. And their final project is an artist book evidencing significant research engagement of some kind, which can be interpreted in any number of ways. So every student in Porter Core visits special collections over the course of a few weeks to view a curated selection of artist books to inspire their work. This requires very careful coordination, as you can imagine. It's a huge imprint on spec call, but it is so worth it. And then students work with teaching artists after their visit to create their own artist books. There are a number of student awards that they can win for their artworks as well. So yeah, I just find these to be incredibly impressive. These are a few from this past year. And this was a collaboration that was developed over time. It existed before I joined UCSC. I want to particularly shout out my predecessor, Jessica Pigza, for her role in molding it into what it is today. So this is the grand prize winner from 2024, and also the shadow of my finger, pretty bad photo there. But this is a beautiful artist book called The Spiral by a student named Josie Potier. Really, really amazing, as I think you can see here. Yeah, very impressive. So we enter a selection of these student-generated artist books into our collections. Not all of them, but some. Josie's book that you just saw on the last slide is now a permanent part of our collections. Last year, we hosted a pop-up exhibition celebrating prize winners and featuring their works alongside artist books by alumni and other close community members. So that was a really special exhibition as well. We also work with photography instructors, a few different ones, to inspire student-generated artist books featuring photography. This is a years-long collaboration that has generated many, many gorgeous works of art. That's my colleague, Jonathan Jackson, with some of his students, many happy faces there, but you can see how engaged they are with the artist books collection. And below that is a spread from a student artwork. So apologies for the wall of text. Whenever I see this on a slide, I freak out, but I think it's worth it. My colleague and photo professor, Jonathan Jackson, sent me testimony about utilizing special collections in instruction, and I really felt compelled to share because I thought it was so beautiful. He said, from studying the original mammoth plate prints of John James Audubon's Birds of America to the pressed envelope poems of Emily Dickinson, hands-on learning in archives and special collections has been integral to my education and practice as an artist. History is with us. It springs back and forth into the present. Archives bear witness to changes, silences, voices. As a photographer, the halls of archives create a special resonance. I'm guided by this materially based system of learning as a professor teaching photography. An artist book, be it photographic, print-based, textual, reveals its construction. I thought that was so interesting. This creates a transformative double reading for students. Not only does the student encounter the idea of the book itself, but they encounter the inquiry that the artists face. This double reading is pivotal for those picking up a camera for the first time, scratching into an intaglio plate, or even putting a digital pen to paper. Art, plainly stated, is transformation. I witness the students' work grow and transform after each visit to special collections. They find the lineage of thought that speaks to them with the help of the incredible and caring staff. Thank you, Jonathan. That's him with a huge staff. We also work with Gary Young, who some of y'all may know, and the Cal Press to inspire student artworks made with letterpress. So he often brings his students in for a visit, and then they review the materials that we've curated, artist books, broadsides, and then they go and make their own. Gary also contributed a mercifully shorter reflection on the instructional resonance of the book. Flexible and coherent, the book is a home for consciousness, and as such provides an unparalleled opportunity for students to embody, examine, and organize and present whatever thoughts or experiences they may wish to articulate and reveal. So next year, a big thing is happening in Special Collections and Archives. I'm developing a new Art of the Book class, which is currently planned for winter session. I acquired a book beetle, which is, I bet everyone knows what that is, but it's a tabletop replica Common Press, Gutenberg, and various bookbinding materials. And I am designing a hybridized book art / book history curriculum, pairing making activities with materials from our collections to further activate those collection materials and also to explore creative production as a research methodology. So we're gonna do things like make clay tablets and try our hands at medieval calligraphy, make paper, et cetera, et cetera. I'm really excited about this course, and I look forward to expanding the curriculum through additional programming efforts so these resources are accessible to the entire campus community. And I'm looking for ideas about that, so if anyone has it, let me know. I couldn't help but share this. A few weeks ago, I took a week-long course at London Rare Book School all about the processes involved in making medieval manuscripts. We did pretty much everything except make the parchment, which maybe would be a touch too grotesque. It was really incredible. We made ink, we made quills from pigeon feathers, paintbrushes from squirrel tails with the bone in, which you can see there. Apparently they cost 9 pence each on eBay. And more. My final project is on the right. I know it is not beautiful, but it was made with heart. And as I tell students, it is about process, not product. And I look forward to bringing some of what I learned in the course to the Art of the Book course. So to kind of close out my discussion of instruction with artist books, I want to touch upon an ever-present concern among librarians teaching in special collections, the issue of engaging students and faculty in STEM disciplines with our collections. As you might expect, our most frequent visitors come from the humanities and social sciences, but we have a wealth of material to support students from a variety of disciplinary perspectives. But that said, it is a head scratcher. Librarians are truly talking about this all the time. And the most difficult aspect is achieving buy-in from STEM faculty ultimately. But we do it sometimes. I work with history of math faculty each year to view early printed books related to their subject of study, and I often integrate artist books, ask for forgiveness, not for permission, to deepen and expand these instructional sessions. So history of math students are there, smiling faces, gathering around some of the materials that we pulled there. We have a number of artist books in our collection that are great for this. One example are artist books with Vavels. We have a number of early printed books with Vavels. One of them is on the slide here. And it can be really productive to set those historical Vavels against ones that are used in contemporary artist books. This is a close-up of me turning the Vavels in Ellen Knudsen's Common Rocks and Other Problems. History of math folks are very interested in mathematical theory, not just numbers, and integrating contemporary artworks like this one really contribute to that theoretical conversation. So it has real instructional utility, in my view. On the topic of STEM, I also frequently work with faculty in our environmental art and social practice MFA to coordinate instruction sessions featuring artist books. They love artist books. This is a very, very interdisciplinary MFA. It is an MFA, but students are particularly invested in the many ways artist books in our collections engage with various scientific themes, usually environmental, as I'm sure you can discern. Here are some of the works that I often pull for those sessions. We have Poisonous Plants at Table from Sherwin Beach Press, Gravity Series by Casey Gardner, and Celestial Navigation by Karen Hanmer. So I will now say a few words about our collection development priorities and challenges. There are many challenges, but also opportunities. So UCSC Special Collections and Archives is a teaching collection, which I've touched on a little bit before. Our collections exist to be used by students. They are not meant to just sit around. And whenever we develop our collections, we have this in mind as a top of mind concern. Our collections are developed to support student success and reflect student interests and investments. So we are a historically very politically engaged campus, and our collecting priorities are aligned with that tradition. We are interested in works that engage with social justice issues, which can be broadly defined and interpreted. We are interested in, we also collect materials related to astronomy. We're home to the Lick Observatory Archive. There's one photo from that there. So we find that artist books that engage with these themes can be really relevant. And also worth noting is that many of our early printed books, a lot of that collection came from the Lick Observatory. So a lot of them are related to astronomy in some way. Santa Cruz is also mushroom obsessed. So we love works related to fungi. We're home to the John Cage Mycology collection, which is a hoot. John Cage was an amateur mycologist, and this collection is very, very popular. We're also interested in works related to climate change, climate justice, and our collections also reflect the Northern Californian fine press print tradition, which is so important, and we develop in this area to a certain extent. So this is obviously not everything we collect, but it is kind of an overarching sense of things. Here are excerpts from the John Cage Mycology collection, some real highlights. So there's so much in this collection. I found, recently I found a star certificate, like someone bought a star in his name. Like, why was it in this collection? I'm not sure. But he kept notebooks with drawings of mushrooms and various observations. He also created an accordion book, which is at the bottom left there, with collage mushroom materials, which is interesting when set against our mushroom-related artist books, of which we have many. So as I mentioned, we do have major limitations regarding what we're able to collect. And as I'm sure you can all imagine and appreciate, things are not getting better. So we have to be really, really strategic when building our collections. We have very modest funds available for collection development and often have to say no to pieces we love. We also have certain endowments with very narrow requirements, and those can be challenging. Another major challenge that particularly grinds my gears is the fact of institutional bureaucracy, which is ever-present, eternal, unavoidable. As may be familiar to you, we have to acquire materials through invoices, so vendors have to be set up in our systems. We can't just go to a fair and use a credit card, which I would really love, particularly at zine fairs where often folks are a little scrappier, and I would love to support that work. So that can be tough. So to kind of close things out, I'm going to do a short review of some highlights from our artist book collection, including a few recent acquisitions. Actually, these are mostly recent acquisitions. So we recently acquired Lise Melhorn-Vaux's House Guest, which has been a huge hit with our student community. They absolutely love it. As you can see, the book form is a small dressmaker's mannequin, and the work features an Elizabeth Bishop poem revealed through layers of clothing, which act as pages. This piece productively challenges students' held notions about what a book is. Is it a book? Who knows? Obviously, it's a book. And how it can be manipulated in space. And it also raises interesting questions about women and labor. Many of our students and staff have histories with American Girl dolls as well. This work also tends to bring about feelings of deep nostalgia, given it is the approximate size of a Molly or a Samantha doll, which I'm sure was not the artist's intention. I mean, maybe it was, I'm not sure, but it is what it is. Everyone on staff at Special Collections is like, oh my God, American Girl dolls. We also recently acquired Islam Ali's Mare Nostrum, which is a really powerful work that challenges us to experience the Mediterranean immigration crisis by physically moving through it. People from, just to kind of summarize this, people from sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, and Far East come to North Africa to cross the Mediterranean using primitive boats with the help of traffickers. And according to the Missing Migrant Project, more than 23,600 missing migrants have been recorded in the Mediterranean since 2014. And the boat pieces you see here are so beautiful, and they were derived from illustrations from pottery from pre-dynastic Egypt. This is a very, very, very new acquisition by Fabiana Rodriguez. It is gorgeous and very powerful, really announces itself on the table in a really delicious way. And yeah, gorgeous in person. It says, artists are the real architects of change. So also kind of engaging themes that students respond to. Another well-loved piece is from Felicia Rice's Moving Parts Press. This piece, if you haven't seen it, is about the size of one of our reading room tables. It's huge, 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 this big. It is a trilingual alphabet in Spanish, English, and Quechua, inviting you to move through language in an extraordinarily tactile way, with little finger puppets that you can move around from Peru. And this slide features two works that I really love to pair with one another in instruction, Lisa Cokin's Ruled and Lori Twitchell's and Peter Suchecki's Bark Book. Each work, in my interpretation, engages in a form of asemic writing where the reader contributes their own meaning to the text in absence of recognizable language. So the language of the Bark Book that you see there are the lines and striations in the bark itself. So I just love that framing of information, right? And also Lori Twitchell has a very fascinating interpretation of that as well. Another new acquisition is Mike Taylor's From the River to DC. This work, of course, is timely, and according to the artist, it requires a slow inspection of the myriad ways we render grief itself abstract through the fatiguing lens of social media and a 24-hour news cycle in a time of grave injustice. It is gorgeous, gorgeous work. And then finally, I wanted to feature a really fun, beautiful, super tactile work by the artist Cynthia Marisol Lozano, which explores the artist's Central American roots and identity through Mayan corn iconography. So it's a little corn that you open, and then it unfurls. It is a true feast. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much, and I would love to be in touch. That is my email.
Thank you so much for that peek into UCSC's special collections, and I really enjoyed seeing too how it ended with what are the things you've collected recently and what are the things you're kind of engaging with now, which we saw throughout the talk. I just wanted to say that we do have a few moments for questions, of course, and we each have microphones, and since it's being recorded, it might be nice to just repeat the question before you answer it. And maybe I'll just start one off. I was really curious, when you have the exhibitions, how are the students selected? Are they part of a specific course that is dealing with exhibitions, or how do you pick the students that are engaged in that process?
So thus far, it has only been student workers who have curated exhibitions. And I would love to expand the scope of that. I created a forum, Google forum, to propose exhibitions from the entire student community at UCSC. But it's hard getting the word out about that kind of a thing. And also, it's a lot of work. Students really have to be committed and put in many hours. One of the nice things about all the projects that we did in the last year and a half is that they were working. Students were on the clock curating these exhibitions, so they were paid for their labor, which is, I think, important whenever possible. But yeah, I mean, we have such an amazing track record of getting students. Our student workers don't necessarily know what Special Collections and Archives is when they join us, but then they start to get to know our collections, they curate exhibitions, and I have 3 ex-student workers going to the UCLA MLAS next year. So it's really beautiful to see those interests blossom. And yeah, again, I'd love to expand the program, but it's also, there are capacity issues, right? Because there's only one me, and I'm the person who facilitates those things. So it's about balance.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Other questions? Yeah.
Interesting. You seem so unique and wonderfully placed, and have all these aspects of what you do. It's wonderful to hear and very exciting. Are there any other people like you in the world that you talk to? Do you have any colleagues who you would point to in other institutions?
That's very kind. The question was whether there are other folks doing this kind of work. And the answer is yes. This area of the profession is really growing. And what I mean by that is having folks who are really engaged with and have a background in instruction and public services, public engagement, in order to activate collections. So there's an equivalent me at pretty much every UC now, which is great.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, and it's not everywhere, but it's in a lot of places. And that is also reflecting, I think, a real trend in the profession. And again, not everywhere, but a lot of institutions are kind of loosening their access policies somewhat to get folks more engaged with the collections.
Use of libraries more and that sort of thing, yeah?
Yeah, using libraries more, just knowing that these resources exist for them, because if you don't invite them to use them, they won't know about them and they'll feel like it's kind of forbidden, and that just isn't what we want, at least in 2025.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your talk. It was super interesting and beautiful. And I'm thinking about the embedded instruction, and I'm curious about how that comes to be. So do you have a thought about a professor, a class, and you proactively reach out and approach and suggest that you could use artist books to support your classroom, or does it work the other way, or some combination?
Yeah, thank you. So the question was about embedded instruction, how that works. It's kind of both. I was lucky enough to inherit some of what I spoke about. So you know, in summary, it all comes from building relationships with folks. So it's so important that people in my role build relationships with faculty, and just kind of spread the word about what the resources that we have, because even faculty can be very unaware of our holdings, and that we welcome students in with open arms, that we have someone who specializes in instruction, so it's not just kind of a show and tell experience, or it doesn't have to be. So it can, you know, it can work like you are in touch with faculty member for years and eventually you kind of work your way in, or it can be a cold email, which I've done. Most often, it's going to be one-shot instruction sessions, which is most common for, you know, all areas of librarianship, where students drop in, touch something, learn something, do something, and then that's what we see of them for the quarter. But I have been able to cultivate a few different relationships with faculty by reaching out, looking at the course listing. Shout out Annette, who's in the audience here, who told me to do that when I joined UCSC. In order to, just let folks know that we have materials that could be relevant to them. I am still kind of trying to crack the nut of how to encourage more embedded instruction, but also, again, it's a little bit of a capacity thing too. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned briefly early on when you were the book you produced with the Filipino American community in Watsonville, I think, that you said something like, they call it a zine, but you consider it an artist book, and then just in your questionnaire for the students, is this a book? Like, I just wonder if you have any more thoughts on the distinction between zine and artist book, or if there is one, or like if that comes into your work at all with students.
Thanks. So the question is about distinctions between zines and artist books, and whether I have an opinion. And of course, like, these definitions are so slippery. A book is in the eye of the beholder. For a librarian who, you know, like, where my vocation is meant to be a commitment to categorization, I'm not that interested in it. Mm-hmm. I think that it can be whatever you feel it is at any given time. You know, obviously there are like some formal trends that you expect to see when you're engaging with a zine. The reason I call it an artist book is because it was kind of more high production ultimately, and was really artfully designed. I think it could, you know, what I find interesting is not imposing my own opinion on students and asking them to dig into this question that has no answer. Because that's what college is. It's all about digging into questions that have no answers and seeing how that makes you feel. So that was my non-answer to that question.
I'll ask one more. For your Art of the Book class, does your library have the facilities to teach all of that out of the library, or do you collaborate with a different part of campus for that?
So we have, in special collections, thankfully we have a little teaching space. We have our own kind of classroom area. The class is going to be small, particularly for this first run, talking like 5 students probably, although the room can hold up to 20-ish. So we do have that space, and thankfully we do have that press now too. I was trying to facilitate a collaboration with the Cal Press, and Gary's amazing, but it's just a lot of red tape, and, you know, to make that kind of thing happen. So yeah, that is the plan, to have it all happen in special collections, to look at books, touch them, then get dirty with the press once the books are safely stored away. I mean, maybe this is insider baseball, but I actually have to work with faculty in making this class happen, because librarians are not allowed to be instructors of record at the University of California. So it's going to be an independent study with a linguistics professor that is just very supportive. Mm-hmm. It's all about relationships. So, yeah.
Thanks. All right. Well, thanks again, Sam.
Thank you all.